in the aim to improve the livelihoods of the citizens of the Republic of Zambia. One of the focus areas of the Patriotic Front government is infrastructural development. However, the President of Zambia, His Excellency President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, has expressed his concern or his disappointment in the EIZ, that is the Engineering Institution of Zambia. This and many more stories that we'll cover on today's episode of News Report, today the 12th of October 2020. My name is Salifyanji Bweupe, and as usual, I'm not alone. I'm joined by my colleague Chimwanga Kalala. Chimwanga, welcome to News Report.
It's good to be here.
Exactly.
Have a great show today.
And we've had a very lovely and conducive weather today. It hasn't been that hot, so it's been rather favorable, like on my end. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I would say different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Exactly. Okay, and so one other story that we have is Mazabuka UPND women threatened to protest naked at NRC mobile insurance centers.
All right, and then Nigeria dissolves the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. So that has to do with police brutality in Nigeria.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Okay, so if you have any comments and contributions towards the show, please be sure to send your comments to our Facebook page, that is Live TV, as well as the number that is scrolling down on your screen, which is 0976-599-547 as well. And so we get into the details of the first story. President Edgar Lungu, who was on the Copper Belt, obviously, has requested for a meeting with the Engineering Institution of Zambia because of the way that the government projects really rather take a bit of time as opposed to private infrastructural projects that are currently going on in the country as well. And so he has called on the EIZ, or mentioned that you have a meeting with EIZ to just try to focus and get answers to why these projects really take a number of weeks or days to actually be completed as well. And I do remember on one of the episodes of the show we're talking about the roads and how that we have so many road developments going on in the city, and that obviously is causing a bit of inconvenience when it comes to road users as well. So if you're in a bus, you get into work, you probably be delayed because one road is not finished, and it's heavily congested as well. What are your thoughts on this particular story?
All right, so the president himself has called most local engineers as unpatriotic and also heartbreaking, the behavior they tend to have towards government contracts. So when you look at most private sector developments when it comes to infrastructure, we've seen if maybe a private company is trying to renovate their branch or maybe just set up some new developments, everything tends to be fast. You can look at most of this. I think a perfect example I'd give of this is the recent developments by Chinese. I'd say if you've seen most of these towers and buildings and how quickly they go up, I think you'd beg to wonder how long does it actually take someone to put up these construction sites?
Right.
And but I think it's actually the opposite. If you look at government projects, it would take years and years for a project to be completed. So I believe there's a bit of reluctance when it comes to handling public construction and the like. I think maybe it tends because government is sort of soft when it comes to enforcing contractual obligations from contractors. So I believe that slows down the whole process where these contractors are not being followed and just being followed up and just to ensure that they do the right thing.
Right. Okay. In my view, whilst you were talking as well, you mentioned how there's a distinction between how private projects are run and also government projects are run as well. And for some time, I have believed that, I don't know if this is true, but this is my theory. I feel like when it comes to anything, we'll give an example of probably the Chinese, have been awarded a project. I feel that for them, it's easier for them to actually get money, build what they need to build themselves, and then probably wait for payment if it's coming from the government as well. Now, when it comes to any governmental, project, any local project as well, I feel that probably there could be one reason could be that you see if anyone is an engineer or they're working on site or a consultant, the first thing that we see happening is where they actually get to like pay themselves before they actually focus on the works that they are supposed to do. And I feel like maybe the attitude towards any projects that need to be done is a bit of it lacks some type of like focus on the finishing the project as well. It's all about, okay, first we get paid, we get what needs to be done, and then probably we continue with the project as well. And maybe I feel maybe the payment comes in. One reason could be like the payment could come in a bit late, so that's why there are all those delays, because the material needs to be bought. You have the human resource that need to be paid off as well, considering the job that they're actually doing as well. So maybe lack of human resource or delayed payments from the government as well. And maybe I feel there could be some kind of like lack of proper planning as well. Because for you to begin a project, and the amount of money that you need, I for one would feel it's very possible to actually prioritize what when to do what to do at this point, and how to go about doing that one as well. And maybe the other excuse could be with when it comes to like resources. Of course, I've already mentioned to do with delayed payments as well. So this is what I feel could be the reason why we have so many projects that are supposed to happen at a particular time, but then they're delayed because of all these issues that could be surrounding the project in question.
Yeah, so personally, I believe resources aren't quite a problem. I think we've seen where contractors have been paid full amounts and then the projects are still stalling. So I think these people, we really need to see who are we handing these contracts as well. I believe we need to hand these contracts to experienced contractors. Just to show, I think we've seen a trend where some people say these contracts get awarded to cadres. And obviously, what work do you expect from a cadre? Obviously, they will just start a foundation just to secure that payment, and after that they actually dash the scene of the actual project. So I believe we really need to reconsider who we give these projects to. Ensure, is this person capable? I think it's an issue of competence as well.
Right.
Will they be able to carry this to the actual end where we have the building we're paying for, the road we're paying for? So I believe we need to actually engage legitimate contractors with experience and with just a know-how, expertise on how to handle such projects. I believe that's the most important thing.
All right, and I do understand that when it comes to the issue to do with corruption, it's quite broad. It's not something that would say point at as in being one thing as well. And I feel that probably there are certain people that have to, I feel, or I've heard rumors where for you to get a project running, you actually, need to pay a little something, even if you have everything that, you need to actually carry on that project as well. I think maybe the process of selecting who qualifies to actually be the engineer or the contractor at that particular point, I think those are things that we have to actually try to change and just bring in legitimate, people that are going to do the job as they should. Yes, fine, someone can come and give you money to actually speed up, give them the opportunity to do, a certain project. But if they're not really qualified, I think it just goes back to zero. We have seen certain roads that have been worked on, but within 2-3 months or even 6 months down the line, the road is already dilapidated because obviously of the material that was used was kind of like a cheap quality material, or maybe the engineers that were hired are those ones that have an idea but not really qualified engineers as well. And when it comes to infrastructure development as well, it's also like there's a health hazard there as well, a risk that could come in if the building is not really erected properly or as it should, or what happened to one of the buildings in town where it developed some cracks. So obviously I do believe before any building is set up, there are engineers that are on the ground to ensure that all the material and all the heights and depth of constructing something are really prioritized and taken care of before the project actually starts.
Yeah, so I think we really need to see I think what government needs to do is really try and gather some principles from how the private sector does things. Just go for the best. Obviously, when there needs to be some due diligence before any contract is awarded. Like, you look at the person's or the contractor's track record. What have they done? Will they be able to do this? I think we don't pay much attention when it comes to that. And I believe extortion is going on when it comes to some of these projects as well, where people are made to pay these huge amounts of money for nothing. You look at some of these schools that are charging millions of dollars to construct, and they don't even go through with the whole project. So I believe a lot has to be done when finding the particular contractors as well. So I think local contractors as well have to pull up their socks and just ensure that they get their houses in order so that they can be engaged on some of these projects. Otherwise, I think this will keep on recurring, because we've had complaints where they say, no, you're always engaging foreign contractors. You don't even consider local contractors. Give some of these contracts to the local contractors. But then here you have government handing these contracts to local contractors. And then at the end of the day, the works are shoddy. Most of these works usually just stall at some level where they just like the contractor ditches the whole site of the project and just like stop showing up. So I believe local contractors really have to pull up the stuff.
Okay, so in as much as you mentioned, the aspect of local contractors as well, like I mentioned before, to do with like the attitude as well towards work. When you have some ground nuts, so one bad nut just makes everything test better as well. So in the same way, there are people that are doing shoddy works that are also making other people that are qualified local contractors to actually look bad, because now the qualified local contractors have not been given or awarded those contracts as well to actually prove that they are actually, could actually be good at, anything that they put their mind to. So the president described the attitude of local engineers as unpatriotic and heartbreaking. So he said this on Sunday after inspecting the Copper Belt Patriotic Front Conventional Center in Dola. So I hope everyone, or the EIZ, since they are representing, every constructor or engineer, they'll be able to actually give answers as to why the attitude is not as expected as well. So I think it's a good thing that the president has decided to just like step in and just try to find out what really the problem is. If there's anyone that needs to be fired because they're not doing their job, I think this could also be a good time to actually identify the bad nuts and just let go of them, so that they can improve their character as well, and probably just learn or do something, and one or two things, and obviously give an opportunity to people that can actually do the job quite well. Yeah.
So I'll just like to echo your statement on the workmanship and the public service. I believe a lot has to be done, as you've put it. I think people have to be singled out in some of these instances, that you are in charge of overseeing this. Why is it going this way? I believe that way people will be held accountable. So a lot has to be done there.
Okay, so now over to Mazabuka and issuance of NRCs.
All right, so women in Mazabuka, that's UPND women. Yeah, so they've threatened to protest naked at these centers where national registration cards are being issued. Yeah, so they're terming the whole process as misadministration of the whole process. I think they're not happy with how the whole mobile issuance of NRCs is taking place. Yeah, so they've actually threatened that they'll protest naked if things keep on going the same way they are. So have you had any experience with the whole mobile NRC issuance? Have you had a chance to maybe see one of the centers or something like that?
I would be lying if I said I did.
All right, so just near my neighborhood, I saw one school just yesterday, and it was packed. Given to the fact that it was a Sunday, I was actually surprised. So I can only imagine what it must be in these remote areas and the like, where people don't have access to electricity, and just the whole transportation of all this equipment to these areas. So I believe there's some challenges on government's end, but I believe people should be saved. And just from the looks of things, what I saw, if in the capital city we are having those challenges, I can only imagine how bad things must be in remote areas.
And I did hear stories of foreigners also being issued with national registration cards. So my concern is really what kind of criteria is ECZ or what criteria is the Home Affairs Ministry actually using to actually give people the national registration cards. And also
I believe it's not up to the Home Affairs Minister to decide on what criteria they use to issue these NRCs. I think this is something that's constitutional, so
no, it is constitutional, but when you look at the requirements for you to actually get an NRC, you must attain the age of 16, isn't it?
Exactly.
Or will be attaining will be 16 in a few months, 4 months' time.
You have to be 16. That's just a requirement.
Okay, right. And another one could have been to do with if there's a birth record or a birth certificate as well. If not, then obviously they will use a close relative, but an older relative to actually now speak on your behalf or represent you to actually go and get the national registration card. So really, I
think ideally the situation is that you should just go to this place and present your birth certificate, and then you get your NRC. Obviously the details are there.
How many people have birth certificates?
Yeah, I think that
is the problem. And how can we prove that someone is actually 16? You know what I mean? So there are a lot of anomalies with this whole process as well. It's not really that clear, or even if it has been told to say these are the requirements, are people really understanding what they actually need? Maybe someone has come in, or they're from the neighboring country and they've lived in the country for a number of years, and they feel, oh, okay, we've had we've stayed in Zambia for quite some time, maybe we can also go and get our NRCs as well. What is it that they are producing at the stations to get the NRCs as well? And the other thing now is to do with timing. I believe that people get NRCs all the time. When you attain the age of 16, you have to go to the registration office and get your NRCs. Why is it that we have a huge number of people trying to get NRCs now? I do believe, yes, people may have lost it. So those that lost their NRCs obviously are going with a police report to show that, yes, the NRCs are lost as well. But with the timing as well, obviously the expectation is you have a number of people that may not even really be attended to because they're working in a specific time frame.
Yeah, so I believe time, given to the fact that we're heading towards the election and an NRC is a requirement for you to get a voter's card, I believe there's a time aspect. Most of these people are trying to ensure that they get their cards so that they can vote next year's election, and then just the fact that it's mobile, so it's closer to people's communities, so they're able to quickly just go to places that are near them to get these NRCs. But I believe the whole timing is kind of strict. I think the Home Affairs Ministry is kind of in a tough place when it comes to time and how they will go about issuing all these NRCs to all these people. And then some concerns that have been raised in this regard is that the actual officers that are working at all these issuance centers actually have bad attitude and use vulgar language.
You get that from most government officers, actually.
Exactly. So yeah, that seems to be a trend as well. So just we've seen stories emerging as well from Bweupe, where people are sleeping at these centers for 2 days just to get their NRCs. So I think we really need to figure out a better way to go about this. I don't know if maybe we can set up some online portal or something where people can submit their details and later on go in person to get this NRC as they're doing with the voter registration. But I believe there's a better way we can go about this.
I think the government at some point should contract private organizations to actually go about doing the registration or national carrying out the whole process of registering people, whether it's for an NRC or it's for a voter's card. I think the attitude there is better, because now it gets to a point where people now begin to get frustrated as well. Those people should remember that they're dealing with their fellow human beings, and calibers differ from one person to another. And so I do understand where the Home Affairs Minister, Mr. Stephen Kampiongo, is coming when he says that, the police officers should at least be, patient with the people as well. It is understandable that people understand different to process things at different levels. But for us, I think, to get better results, let these contracts be awarded to just private companies to actually carry this on, because the attitude of most government officers really is rather demoralizing, if anything.
I'm actually wondering how they would go about it with a private company, given to the fact that it's quite a sensitive issue.
No, a lot of private companies are awarded contracts to carry out certain projects. If probably one contractor is brought in to say, okay, now you can do the annual accounts for a company, do the bookkeeping and whatnot, like, why can't they issue out national registration cards as well?
The Home Affairs Ministry has come under fire just for how they are handling the whole issuance of NRCs. I would imagine the hell that a private company would go to. I think
people look. You cannot. You
yeah?
need to understand in life that you cannot please everybody. Someone is going to find a negative way of attacking you, even when you're doing the right thing. There are those that are going to appreciate, and obviously those that are going to just think everything is a waste of time and resources as well. The truth of the matter is, people need to have their NRCs because people need to get their voters cards, and there isn't enough or sufficient time to actually go about carrying out this process as well. This is not me sticking to the private organizations. I'm just saying that it's necessary for this point when it comes to the way the NRCs are being issued as well, in this manner where, first of all, there's a time aspect, and where at least now they've come closer to the people, but then because of the attitude that's being given towards everyone that goes to get the NRCs, which is obviously very unfortunate, but at the end of the day, this has to be done, and people are going to complain. So if there's no solution to actually doing it in a different way to ensure that everyone has their NRCs, then people should stop complaining and let the Home Affairs Ministry handle or do things the way that they're doing it, because at the end of the day, that is something that is a priority at the moment.
Yeah, so I believe there have been concerns. Some people actually in support, they're saying some areas are being given better service than others. Some are saying that cadres have interfered in the whole process, where they're choosing who to allow in to get their NRC and who not to allow. Some are being forced to pay for them to actually get their NRC. So I believe there's a whole lot going on with this exercise, but I believe overall people should be allowed to get their NRC.
And also you mentioned the aspect of maybe like if there's like an online platform to actually do the registration and probably just go and collect from that side. I think that is something that would work out as well. But then this is also a call on the Home Affairs Minister to ensure that there are people, his ministry, and the representatives are on the ground to just find out what's really happening in these centers as well. I think everyone should be treated equally, the same way that everyone has a right to actually vote for the person that they want to represent them as a president. I think it's the same way that people should be respected as well. So if people are doing things the wrong way, there's nothing wrong to actually say, oh, you know what, this is not what you're supposed to do, this is how you're supposed to do it. So we need to find better ways of managing people, because people come from all sorts of backgrounds as well. So the attitude from our fellow workers in government, please. My appeal is that I think we need to find better ways of dealing with people. Sometimes work will frustrate you. Sometimes people will frustrate you. Even in homes, you get frustrated. But at the end of the day, I think your job needs to be done. You are paid to do that particular job. You signed to do that particular job. You agreed that regardless of the situations, when I'm hit left, right, and center, I'll still maintain my composure. I think that is what we also really need to live by as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think you get paid for it, so do it, obviously. Yeah.
Exactly. So Mr. Kampyongo was at Mbia Primary School in Magoyo constituency on Sunday, where he urged registration officers not to use abusive language. And if it gets to a point where people are really using abusive language, then it's quite a huge issue or problem.
Definitely
Yeah.
is.
Mhm.
Then, we've grown to expect some of these things from some of these institutions, just how they carry themselves. So it's not a big deal, so to say. And
Yeah.
you just go there, whatever they tell you, as long as you do what you wanted. At the end of the day, you live to fight another day. As long as you achieve what you wanted, just get your NRC and just leave.
That's true. So on that note, we'll take our first break and we'll be back shortly after this. Stay tuned.
Masenza bwanji tungende sako na iwe pali pako ma 20 apolo ma 5 kwa jari
na makoino sashinjira kumuzonda
makoino songa chinjeko ku bantu abale ndio chopwana na 5 hours pamene pano leyo
kamba nani.
That is why you need to get an e-token, sir. It is faster and easier.
To what? The e-tolling card is a National Road Fund agency card. So all you have to do is just credit it in Dalama and you'll be able to use it but to get Monga Panusu. To avoid the inconveniences, so where you have to start looking for a 20 kwa chocolate cherusha bantu so.
Introducing the electronic toll card. It's easier, faster, and secure. Access the e-toll cards from all toll gates across the country or the agency's head office in Lusaka at only 30 kwacha.
This message is brought to you by the National Road Fund Agency, a sustainable road fund.
Welcome back. You're still watching News Report with me, Salifyanji Bweupe and Chimwanga Kalala, brought to you every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 18 hours. And so into our next story, we head to Nigeria.
All right, so the Nigerian police chief has announced the dissolution of a notorious anti-robbery unit following days of protests against police brutality. So this is a unit of the police called the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. So which has been accused of torturing and murdering and other unlawful arrests. So basically just harassing the civilians in Nigeria. Yeah, so this is a unit of police that has been dissolved, so meaning that it will no longer be functional. It's now been rendered defunct. Yeah, so the police chief also announced that a new outfit to tackle violent crimes will be set up, so to replace this special anti-robbery squad. Yeah,
Right.
so I think we have a video from Al Jazeera.
After 5 days of demonstrations that in some cases turned violent, protesters are savoring their victory. Protests began 6 days ago after a man was allegedly shot and killed by members of the police unit called the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, or SARS. The police chief said dissolving the unit, whose members have further tarnished the image of the police, was necessary for a force that is in serious need of changes.
The Special Anti-Robbery Squad of the Nigerian Police, otherwise known as SARS, is hereby dissolved across all formations, the 36 state police commands, and the Federal Capital Territory where they currently exist.
Soon, a new squad will be set up to tackle violent crimes, and that civil society will now work with the police to identify and punish officers found committing abuses. But civil society wants to see officers already accused of murder and other crimes be punished. Buoyed by their victory, activists now want to push for more accountability from judges and politicians.
Judicial, corruption is still very, high. Legislative corruption is going on, and executive corruption is going on. So definitely all the public institutions need serious, reform in order to respond to the yearning and aspiration of Nigerians. You cannot have an organization that is supposed to be run by law and order, and it is completely carrying out its activities with impunity.
On the street, many say they've heard it all before.
This is not the first time the government have been banned SARS. They are banned. This is third time now. At the end, they'll soon come up again. So for me, it's not acceptable.
And the fact that Nigerians can actually gather up and to a cause actually, and to do things that people know that we have a voice.
They insist dissolving the anti-robbery unit alone is not enough. They want officers guilty of the crimes they've been accused of punished. And that is what Nigerians will be watching out for before the new police outfit is formed. Ahmed Idris, Al Jazeera, Abuja.
Osei Ojigo is the director of Amnesty International Nigeria. She says there's skepticism about the decision to dissolve the squad.
I think it's a step in the right direction in terms of stopping the excessive use of the SARS to perpetrate crimes in Nigeria. But we want something that would be long-lasting. So disbanding this unit and creating another unit by another name that will continue to commit atrocities will still not be acceptable. We want a complete overhaul of the practices of the police in Nigeria. They need to respect international law and standards, and they need to ensure that they are operating within the law. Right now, what we have is rogue officers who think that no one can do anything to them, and which has allowed impunity to thrive. We want them to actually bring those officers that have been accused. They have this information already. There have been complaints. We've also issued reports of several notorious sections in the states where atrocities have been committed. So we would actually have loved them to say, this is what we're going to do, investigate, and before redeploying any officers, to make sure those that have been specifically named or their complaints against, that they are set aside and they are actually prosecuted.
So we monitored Al Jazeera for that particular report, and obviously police brutality continues to be the never-ending, sad story, not only in Africa but the world over as well. And considering the fact that police officers decided to actually take the law into their own hands, to a point where I feel they were really overstepping their boundaries, and the police brutality was, just a bit too much, like a bit, excessive, and all that. And so I feel that even though the suggestion is to dissolve this particular group that's there and bring in another one, it's not really going to end the problem that's there. What if they bring in people that are going to, act worse than the previous group as well?
Yeah, so I believe this has been a recurring issue. Brutality has been a recurring issue with police worldwide. So I don't know exactly what happens when you're in a position of power where you can police people. I don't know if that forces people to just try and take advantage, or maybe just show their overbearing influence or power over people. Because normally I think the civil manner police should get along with civilians.
Exactly.
Where they should be able to just interact and engage in an appropriate manner. It doesn't always have to escalate to where force has to be used. So I think especially in African countries, although we've seen this in foreign countries as well, but in African countries it's like police and civilians just don't go together. It's like they can never be that just a civil dialogue between the police and the people. Yes. So we just need to I don't even know what to say about it. Yeah, it's just quite sad.
I think this is obviously based around, I think, the mental state of people. Yes, we need people that are in service to actually be of a strong character, and obviously someone that is going to protect a group of people if need be. But this doesn't have to take away like the humanity, because the humanity still needs to be in them. But if you bring in a person that is still going to be brutal and forget the human side to themselves or to the people around them, then actually that becomes a problem as well. And so the civil society wants to see the police officers being brought to book as well, and being punished as well. I don't know how this one is going to be achieved, but probably we hope that everyone that is guilty will be brought to book, and the right type of law and punishment will actually apply.
Yeah, I believe
Right.
that's true. And just the fact that you alluded to earlier, that if they set up a new institution, I believe these are the same people who joined from the previous unit to the new unit. Yeah, it's the same
politicians.
people. Exactly. So I think it will just be recycling these same people who are using civilians, just under a new name, or maybe just new structures and the like. But I believe it should be the same people. So I believe they just have to find a holistic solution to this, rather than just saying we've gotten rid of this. I think they need to put in place some measures to ensure that such a thing doesn't happen again.
Right, that's true. And so on that particular note, we have come to the end of tonight's episode of News Report. But before we go, we'll go through the headlines. Attitude by local engineers unpatriotic and heartbreaking, says ECL.
Mazabuka UPND women to protest naked at NRC mobile issuance centers.
And Nigeria dissolves special anti-robbery squad. So these are the stories that made headlines this evening. Join us again tomorrow at the same time for more news. This has been Salifyanji, Bweupe and Chimwanga, Kalala. And on behalf of the entire production crew, saying good night, God bless, and see you tomorrow, and enjoy watching live TV. Stay tuned.